Hey guys, Kyle here. If you tuned into the fireside earlier, you know that AI is happening really fast, but a lot of people have questions about how they can make the most of it. Well, my day job is actually studying innovation cycles in the world of HR tech and transformation. We recently ran a study on what was going on with AI in HR's adoption journey and what was making it work versus what might be holding some people back. And what was really interesting was that the majority of organizations are actually stuck in an exploration mode for AI. And the reason why that's really interesting, at least to me, is that AI is happening fast. And if nearly half of companies are watching to see what happens, I'm afraid they're falling behind. And that's why for today's conversation, we're going to talk about how you could be building momentum in AI every day. And so what we find is that for HR, that ambition isn't the obstacle. There is a lot of ambition. There's a lot of good ideas. There's a lot of interest. And I think there's people who are willing to try new things. The challenge is that the foundations aren't necessarily there. When we talked to Ian and Pilar earlier, we had talked about the importance of making sure that AI use cases are safe, right? Well, how do we do that? Well, I'm going to share with you what we're seeing in the data today. So at the highest level, one of the big questions people ask me for all the time is like, Kyle, what does maturity in AI for HR look like? And honestly, I know that a lot of consultants like to have their cool, innovative maturity models, but where I sit, I don't think maturity exists in AI for HR yet. But what does is momentum. There are companies who have started using AI and who have continued to use AI, and there are those who have started and stopped, and those who haven't started at all. And what we want to focus on is the qualities of the organizations who are actually able to build momentum and maintain it. This is based on research that we did with 350 HR leaders in North America, the EU, and UK. And what we identified in this study was there were 7 drivers of momentum for AI in HR, but today we only have time to talk about 3 of them. And they are all in this bucket of capability. So that we found there were 3 dimensions of AI momentum. It was capability, posture, and investment. And we're going to dig into the 3 drivers of capability, which includes literacy, governance, and integrations. So the first driver is, as you'd expect, literacy. I say something, you can't be a part of the conversation if you can't speak the language. And this is especially true when it comes to HR's voice in AI innovation. Interestingly, in the past, we have let the nerds figure out how the tech worked. You could hand over a new implementation to HRIT. You could pull in talent ops to work on something, and they were the ones who needed to know how it all worked. Today, AI is much different. The entire HR organization needs to be at least literate enough to know how these things work and how they don't. The leaders in HR and the leaders in AI adoption in HR are the ones who are really prioritizing that literacy, and you see that here in the data. So on the left, you have laggards the people who are in the laggards group are either not using AI at all or still just exploring their options. And the leaders are the ones who are well on their journey, well on their way to being an AI first HR organization. What you find is that 61% of those companies who are in the laggards group report that their HR organization, not just a select few, but their organization as a whole, 61% reported they are not yet familiar with AI. That is very concerning. That's nearly 2/3 of HR practitioners who don't really know how this stuff works. It's no wonder AI might not be moving as fast as you would expect, listening to all the new cool things that are happening in the tech ecosystem. On the other hand, now let's just acknowledge that the leaders have some literacy problems too. The leaders don't have it all figured out. 16% of folks in that group said that they still have some work to do when it comes to literacy across the HR organization. But that gap, nearly 45 points in difference, is pretty significant. And that's why I always start the conversation, if we talk about building momentum in AI, literacy is where it starts. The next driver is one that I literally never thought that I would be excited about. I think I actually mentioned it in our fireside earlier, is like the new cool thing is governance. Who would have ever imagined? But whereas in the past, I feel like people thought that governance, a lot of it was like the red tape that you feel like you would go through anytime you need to get something done. Governance is actually accelerating AI in HR. It's setting up the guardrails, and not in a figurative best practice way, but in an actually very real, very specific and practical way. And once again, as you compare those organizations who are lagging in AI adoption versus those who are leading, we see that governance is a major distinguisher between those who are ahead and those behind. So 51% of laggards have absolutely no governance framework for the use of AI in their organizations at all. Half have no policies, not just in HR, but across their entire company. They have no governance frameworks whatsoever. Mind-boggling. Those are in that same category. 38% said that they don't even know if one exists. So it's like, oh my God, that's over 80% of companies who haven't really made any progress in their AI journey. Governance is either not deployed yet or not even in the works. And this means when you don't have governance, you don't have rules. And so, of course, there's a lot more risk to manage there. You have people who are going to come up with a cool idea and run out to their favorite public LLM, and suddenly they're sharing performance data somewhere they really shouldn't. That's a major problem, right? But as you look at governance, it doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect system. There are some really simple practices that you can implement into building meaningful and sustainable practical HR governance for AI. The first is just use case approval, making sure that we have a defined process where we can identify new AI use cases, review them together, and get them approved, where we know what it takes for us to start an AI pilot, for us to go in onto an AI use case. It needs to be clear how this gets done. Another piece is decision ownership. The good news is when it comes to AI, it's not all on our shoulders in HR. We have colleagues in the organization that help us make decisions, whether finance is making a decision on the business case, IT is making a decision on the technical viability of a solution, or whether legal and compliance are telling us what kind of risk profile a use case has. There is, among the leaders, clear ownership for decision-making around AI in HR. The third is where a lot of us get stuck, which is on privacy and ethics. There is a lot more to consider for governing AI than just the bias boogeyman. There are data privacy considerations and ethics baselines that are actually a lot more common sense than you might expect. And I guarantee you that data privacy regulations exist, best practices exist. In your nearest Google search, you can find some guidelines. The last is around communication, which, hi, this is the boundaries of HR, right? We're constantly communicating with the employee base about what changes are coming and what new things are going on. We need to have clear communication plans for employees as a part of our governance so we can convey to them what's coming, what we're doing with AI, what we're not doing with AI, what they should and shouldn't be doing with AI. These are all a part of AI governance. And by the way, you don't need to hire a major consulting firm to start putting some ideas together. That's the beauty of governance work. You can start coming up with some great aligned practices across your partners in the business. The third driver of AI momentum in HR is integration. Now, when I told you that governance was one that I wasn't expecting to be very exciting, integration is also one that is maybe a bit of a sleeper hit. What we're finding is to get the most lift out of these systems, we can't be deploying AI over here and AI over there. Integration is where momentum either lives or it dies, where a use case can have some value here, but doesn't actually make enough impact across the HR operation. This is going to undermine any real ROI on that use case. Again, we look at the differences between the leaders and the laggards, and again, it's worth noting that the leaders don't have absolutely all this figured out, but they're definitely way ahead. 37% of leaders in our survey said that they have full integration of their systems and their data and their processes where AI insights can actually flow from one system to the next. Comparatively, laggards, 83% of them reported that their HR systems are not integrated at all. They reported fragmented data, siloed insights, and as a result, some stalled pilots. As you look at this as you look at integration as a driver of momentum in AI, it's important to think about this as a foundational infrastructure, not just some IT project. There is a reason why these systems haven't maybe had deep integrations before, because learning is over here and talent acquisition is over here. We've never had to build in a connection between those systems, right? But if it's all part of driving data, a data ecosystem for your people operations, suddenly that need becomes a little bit more salient. What we do find is that leaders that treat integration as a foundational infrastructure, as a core must have, and not just as a back office IT project or a nice to have capability, they're the ones that are able to get more lift out of their pilots and to move faster and to move more consistently. So as we look at this, like the recommendation here is not to go out and buy new tools and bolt them onto fragmented systems. That accelerates fragmentation and not results. We need to start building from the core. So what? Obviously, AI can't be solved in one day, but I had 10 minutes and I think that I shared some things that are worth noting. As a recap, most organizations are trying to build the foundation and run the race at the same time, and that's just a reality for us here in HR. But there is stuff that you could be doing day to day without massive AI change management budgets that can give you lift. The first is building AI literacy. Can every HR leader in your organization evaluate an AI use case with confidence? Building governance. Do you actually have a governance framework in mind? And can you get started today? And then on the integrations front, are your systems connected enough for AI to flow? If you can't answer these questions, I think you've got some work to do. And the good news is you don't have to go it alone. I'm sure that your solution partners are willing to lean in and share with you some ideas. Once you're in motion, momentum builds. There are things that you could be doing day to day. Remember just some mantras for you. I love working with mantras. It's how I actually keep a best practice in my head. The first, build literacy broadly. Don't leave it just to the nerds. The second is stand up governance now. Get it done. And the third is prioritize integration before more tools. We need to make the systems we have work better together. That's all the time I have for today, but if you are interested in learning a little bit more about your own organization's AI momentum, scan this QR code and take the AI momentum assessment. It's absolutely free, and you can download the entire 64-page report that we wrote on AI momentum, which is just a little bit of light reading for the weekend. Anyway, thank you for spending some time with me. Chart Hop, I'm going to hand it back over to you.